More than 2,200 cyber attacks every day. Almost one cyber attack every 39 seconds. Without the SSL or the TLS protocol, the world wouldn't have been the way it is today. Before we dive in to the SSL world, let's first cover a bit of history and some fundamentals. As usual, starting with the basics and building our way up. We all know that any communication that happens over a network between, let's say, a client and a server is vulnerable to a variety of threats. The data can be modified, can be dropped, spoofed, and the list of threats goes on. Basically, the SSL or TLS protocol will allow us to create a secure and protected end-to-end tunnel and move the information through this tunnel to allow the client and the server to exchange information securely, even through a public network. When both the client and the server agree to use the SSL or TLS protocol in their communication, the protocol will ensure the confidentiality, the integrity, and the authentication of the data being transferred over the wire. The confidentiality part guarantees that the data being exchanged cannot be read by anyone except the sender and the recipient, even if a man in the middle captured the data. Usually, we achieve this using techniques such as encryption. Beside that, the integrity assures us that the data received was not modified or manipulated on the wire. A way to achieve integrity is hashing. And finally, the authentication is the way of verifying the identity of the sender and also the recipient if needed. The simplest way we know to achieve authentication is to use shared passwords. But there are more advanced means of authentication such as certificates and signatures and so on. When you connect to a website and the URL of that website starts with HTTPS, it means that the communication with the server of that website is secure and that whatever information you exchange with that server is virtually guaranteed to have confidentiality, integrity, and authentication. A URL starts with HTTP without the S will have an insecure communication and your information might be at risk. But the SSL or TLS protocol is not just for websites communication. The protocol can also be useful in secure file transfers and can provide a secure way for remote employees to access their company's resources safely from home. I am sure by now that you are asking yourself why I keep saying SSL and TLS. Are those two different protocols or it is the same protocol? To answer this question, we'll go back to the 1994. A company called Netscape was one of the big players in the internet industry at the time. Netscape believed that the internet has no future unless it can be secure. Driven by this vision, eventually Netscape introduced a security protocol called the SSL protocol. SSL stands for Secure Sockets Layer. And however the first few releases of the SSL protocol was not very effective, there is no doubt that this protocol changed the world forever. The SSL protocol made internet secure communication easily possible for the first time. And later on, in 1999, the International Engineering Task Force, or IETF for short, stepped in and standardized the SSL protocol. Now that the SSL protocol is available for everyone to use with their softwares and their servers, the internet is finally a safer place. The IETF also decided to change the protocol's name to Transport Layer Security Protocol, or TLS for short. And that's why we have two different names for the same protocol. The SSL is the protocol which was originally invented by Netscape, while the TLS is the same protocol but after being standardized and maintained by the IETF. As the digital landscape and the security threats evolved, the SSL protocol as well had to evolve. Many new versions of the SSL and TLS were released, like SSL version 1.0, version 2.0, TLS version 1.2, TLS version 1.3, and so on. Every new release of the protocol becomes stronger and overcome a major threat that made the previous release of the protocol vulnerable. The latest at the time of making this episode is TLS version 1.3. And now in 2023, most of the SSL versions of the protocol are flagged as insecure and not commonly used anymore. The TLS versions, on the contrary, are the latest and widely used. Nonetheless, most of people still refer to the protocol only as SSL, even if it is a TLS version. One last question in this episode. If the old SSL versions of the protocol are already vulnerable and obsolete, why some environments still support it? The answer for this question is balance. The balance between security and accessibility. Because some customers are still using old devices or old software that do not support the newer TLS versions, certain websites and services that do not require a high level of security will choose to support all the SSL and TLS versions, even the insecure releases, just to allow the majority of users to access to their content or to their services. Let's say something like Wikipedia. On the other hand, if you are a bank or a cloud provider environment, you may have to sacrifice the flexibility for the sake of security.
So, if you go to sslabs.com and go to projects and select the SSL Pulse project, you can find here useful data and the statistics about the SSL or TLS protocol. For example, if we scroll down to the protocol support, we would see that for TLS version 1.3, 60% of the environments that were surveyed supports TLS version 1.3. And for SSL version 1.2, this is the most widely used or supported today. So, for example, we see here that for TLS version 1.2, almost 100% of the environment support using TLS version 1.2. Also, as we can see, for SSL version 2 and SSL version 3, not many environments support these protocols as they are flagged now as insecure. You can see them in red. For TLS version 1.0 and TLS version 1.1, there is still some environments that support these versions of the SSL or TLS protocol, yet it is flagged yellow, which means vulnerable. For every protocol, you will find a true color column and then a little bit faded column. This is the comparison between the current month and the previous month. So usually you will not find much difference between the current month and the previous month support-wise, except if there was some attack or some vulnerability that was discovered and many environments or many companies or services decided to move on from a protocol version to a newer one. For example, let's go back to November, I think 2014. So here is November 2014, and in November 2014, for SSL version 3, there was a vulnerability called Poodle attack that was discovered at that time. And you can see that in October 2014, almost 98% of the environments were supporting SSL version 3.0, but by November, just 1 month later, 38% of these environments stopped supporting the SSL version 3 and moved to newer versions. You can find a lot of useful data and insights into the SSL and TLS protocol usage and support in the SSL Labs TLS.com website. You can take a look and use this information to decide what is the best protocol version to use in your environment.
So, in short, the SSL protocol aims to protect our communication on the internet or through an insecure network by providing means of confidentiality, integrity, and authentication. By understanding the different versions of the SSL protocol and how it evolved, we can make informed decisions about how to best protect our data. In today's episode, I just wanted to untangle any confusion about the nature of the SSL and the TLS protocol. But in the next video, we will get a little bit more technical and deeper into the world of SSL. That's it for now. I will see you in the next episode.